The Third Testament, Revelations of Jesus Christ. Chapter 2, The Dawn of the Third Era. The First Revelation. This is a day of commemoration. On a day like this, I consecrated my first spokesmen to make known through them my new commandments and my new revelations. The spirit of Elijah vibrated through Roque Rojas to remind you the pathway that is the law of God. The moment was solemn. The spirits of those present were trembling from fear and anticipation, and was the heart of Israel at Mount Sinai when the law was promulgated. And as the disciples were trembling on Mount Tabor as they beheld the transfiguration of Jesus, while Moses and Elijah appeared in spirit to the right and left of the Master. That first day of September 1866 was the birth of a new era, the dawn of a new day, the third era which was opened before humanity. From that moment, and without stopping, many prophecies and many promises made by God to men thousands of years ago have been coming true. It has come to pass in you, men and women who inhabit this world in this era. Who among you was on this earth when those prophecies were spoken, and when those promises were made? Only I know that. But the important thing is that you know that I promised it to you, and that I am fulfilling it. Do you remember that cloud in which my disciples saw me ascend the last time that I manifested myself to them? In truth, it was written that I would come again in a cloud, and this I have fulfilled. On the 1st of September 1866, my spirit came in a symbolic cloud to prepare you to receive the new lesson. Later, in 1884, I began to give you my teachings. I did not arrive as a man, but rather spiritually contained in a ray of light to dwell within human understanding. This is the means chosen by my will to speak to you in this era, and I will take into account the faith that you deposit in this word. Because in this era it will not be Moses who guides you through the desert in search of the promised land, nor Christ made man who makes you hear his word of life as the pathway to salvation and freedom. It is now the human voice of these beings which come to your ears, and it is necessary to spiritualize yourself to find the divine essence where I am present. It is therefore that I tell you that there is merit in believing in this word, because it is given through imperfect beings. In 1866, the first congregation of spiritualists, disciples of this doctrine, was born. Under the light of my spirit, and oriented by Elijah, those first children began to receive the inklings of a message which now, at its ending, you are receiving in abundance. Messages and signs all around the world. Elijah, who would come first to prepare the pathway of the Lord, manifested himself for the first time through a human speaker in 1866. Do you wish to dedicate a few moments to investigate the signs and events that took place in all its sequence and coincided with the period of that manifestation? Again, it will be the men of science who will study the stars, those who in ancient times were called the wise men, those who will testify that the heavens have given signs that are divine voices. Do not think that this location on earth, where I am presently manifesting myself, is the only place where I am presenting myself to my children. For verily I say to you that my manifestation is universal in various forms. Elijah, who manifested himself to you prior to my manifestation through human spokesmen, did not come only to this nation where you live. He went from one place to another throughout the earth, announcing the arrival of a new era, and also informing humanity that the kingdom of heaven would soon descend upon mankind. voices appeared from everywhere announcing my arrival to you. Nature, in turmoil, shook the earth. Science was amazed before new revelations. The spiritual valley descended upon men, and in spite of that, humanity remained deaf before those voices that announced a new era. The phrase spiritual veil or spiritual valley refers to the spirits of light, of the kingdom of God, elevated beings from the hereafter. A torrent of divine light descended to save men from the darkness, but they, selfish and materialistic, far from aspiring to the perfection of the spirit and the moral improvement of their lives on earth, took that light to build thrones and glories, material comforts and pleasures, and when they thought necessary, arms to destroy the lives of their fellow men. Their eyes were blinded in the intensity of my light, and their vanity caused them to become lost. Yet, I tell you, by that same light they shall find the truth, find the way, and be saved. Meaning the opposite of spiritualized, a life dedicated exclusively to the physical and material plane. Those who have known how to truly receive this light as a divine message have allowed their conscience to guide their steps and their deeds, for they had a presentiment that the Lord has returned and that He is among men. The representatives of the various sects and religions have not wanted to receive me. Their hearts, their dignity, and their false grandeur prevents them from accepting me in spirit. For that reason, groups have been formed during this era on this earth, which consist of brotherhood and congregations, who feel the presence of the new era, those who seek solitude to pray and to receive inspirations of the Lord. There are religions that are getting prepared for my new coming, not knowing that I am already saying farewell. I called everyone, and in truth my call and the rumor that I am communicating with mankind arrived to every corner of the earth, accompanied by testimonies and evidence that speak of me. Redeemed sinners, converted unbelievers, resurrections of the dead, the terminally ill who are healed, and the possessed who are freed from their bondage. But I found many of them deaf, others vain in their earthly glory, and yet others fearful of knowing my manifestation as the Spirit of truth. I received and taught the ones who came to me, trusting in my love. People of other lands shall come to this people, multitudes anxious to ask you of the spiritual happenings that you have witnessed in this era, as well as of the revelations and prophecies that I have given you. For in many parts of the world, my messages have been received that say that in a place in the West my divine ray has descended to speak in this era to humanity. You shall see how, when the time comes, other people and nations shall come looking for you. And then men from the great religions shall be surprised that it is not them whom I came looking for. How little my new manifestation interests the world. How few are the ones who keep vigil and are waiting for me, and how many are the ones who sleep. Many are waiting for my return, yet not all perceive my true spiritual presence during this era. Some, because of their old belief, think I will return as a man. Others believe that I will return in a manner visible to the material eye. Only a few are aware of the true nature of my return, which is spiritual. Some ask and wonder what form I will take, what day and time I will arrive, or where I will appear. Others, without thinking of material forms, times, or places, say to themselves, "The Master is already among us, and His spiritual enlightenment surrounds us." When this message comes to all the hearts of men, to some it will be a joyful present, for it will confirm all their presentiments and their faith. In contrast, others will deny the truth of my message upon not finding it in agreement with what they thought it would be. and not manifested in the form they expected. Elijah as a forerunner of the Lord. I sent Elijah to return in the third era, as I, as the master in that second era, had announced, saying, I say unto you, Elijah has come already, and they knew him not. I shall return to the world, but truly I tell you, before me shall be Elijah. On September 1st, 1866, see chapter 38. And as all the words of the Master come to pass, in the third era, Elijah has come before me to awaken the spirits, to make them foresee that the hour of the Holy Spirit shall open their doors, to say to every spirit to obey his eyes, to prepare his garments to pass the threshold from the second era to the third era, and so that the manifestation of Elijah would be more tangible in this third era, I made him speak through just a man, Roque Rojas. Elijah, from the hereafter, spiritually enlightened this man, inspired him, strengthened him, and guided all his steps from beginning to end. Truly, I tell you, I did not come to choose Roque Rojas from among men. I sent him, sent his spirit already prepared by my charity. I gave him the material form that I had prepared. And you know that he was humble, that through his humanity and his virtue the Father manifested great deeds. He was a prophet, a speaker, a seer, and a guide. From all of these he left a clear example to the people. He was mocked and ridiculed by his own people, as was Moses in the desert. He was persecuted, as was Elijah the prophet. And he had to seek out the mountain peaks to pray for and watch over his people. He was scoffed at and judged by priests and scribes, like his master, and was believed and surrounded by very few, again like his master. His hands dispensed balsam, performed miracles which raised faith in some and confusion in others. His lips spoke of prophetic lessons that were fulfilled to the letter, and his lips knew the counsel and give comfort to those sick at heart. His mind knew to conceive great inspirations and to raise itself with the ecstasy of the just, of the apostles, of the prophets. His spirit knew how to free himself from this world and his flesh, to penetrate the spiritual valley and humbly arrive at the gates of the mysteries of the Lord. And by this elevation, the spirit of Elijah manifested himself to the first witnesses before the coming of the ray of the Master. Roque Rojas assembled a group of men and women of faith and goodwill, and there, in the midst of his first gatherings, Elijah manifested himself through the faculty of the envoy, saying, I am Elijah the prophet, the same of the transfiguration on Mount Tabor. He gave instructions to the first disciples, at the same time that he proclaimed to them the era of spirituality, and he foretold that the ray of light of the Divine Master would communicate with his people soon. On a day when the humble dwelling of Roque Rojas was full of faithful followers who believed the word of that man, Elijah descended to illuminate the mind of his speaker, and inspired by me, he anointed 7 of those believers to whom he gave the representation or symbolisms of the 7 seals. Later, when that promised moment of my communication took place, I observed that out of those 7 chosen, only 1 kept vigilance awaiting the arrival of the pure spouse, and that heart was that of Damiana Oviedo, the maiden whose faculty was the first to receive the light of the divine ray as a reward for her perseverance and her preparation. Damiana Oviedo represented the 6th seal. It was one more proof that the light of the 6th seal illuminates this era. The text refers to the revelation of John the Apostle and to the second 2 last of the 7 seals, which define different periods forming the Lord's great plan for redemption. See chapter 38. Very few indeed were able to truly feel the presence of the divine envoy. Once again he was the voice who cried out in the wilderness, and again he prepared the heart of men for the imminent coming of the Lord. Thus, the sixth seal was opened, allowing its contents to be contemplated, and poured like a torrent of justice and light upon mankind. Thus, many promises and prophecies remained fulfilled. Elijah, like Jesus and Moses, came to illuminate the eyes of your spirit, so that you would behold the Father. Moses taught you to love your fellow man as thyself. Jesus said to you, love one another. Elijah ordered you to have charity and more charity toward your brethren. Then he added, and you will behold my Father in all his splendor. When the darkness that has covered humanity disappears, and light is manifested in the spirits, you will feel the presence of a new era, for Elijah has returned among men. But since they have not known how to see him, it has been necessary that he manifests his spirit through a human spokesman, and that he appears before those who are able to perceive him spiritually. As in the vision in which Elisha saw Elijah riding a carriage of fire over the clouds. Elijah has come as a forerunner in this time to prepare mankind for my arrival. He has come as a prophet to announce the new era to you with its battles, its trials, and also with the wisdom of his revelations. He comes with his carriage of light to invite you to enter it in order to lift you over the clouds and take you to the spiritual mansion where peace reigns. Trust in him as in the Good Shepherd. Follow him spiritually as the people followed Moses in the first era. Pray that he will help you to fulfill your mission, and if you want to imitate him, do so. Elijah, a spirit of great power who has not been recognized by humanity, has always been my forerunner. Today, he has come once again to prepare the chosen, those who have served me as spokesman, and to all humanity. If you prepare yourselves and study my teaching in order to come to know my will, Elijah will come as your support and friend. Elijah is a divine ray who illuminates and guides all beings and leads them to me. Love him and honor him as a forerunner and as your mediator. Elijah the prophet, the forerunner, the envoy of the third era, intercedes for his flock, prays for those who do not know to pray, and conceals with his mantle the blemish of the sinner, waiting for his regeneration. Elijah prepares his multitudes, his legions, to combat the darkness created by the ignorance, sin, fanaticism, and materialism of mankind. Now it corresponds to all of you who are prepared and awake to announce the liberation of the world. Remember that Elijah, the promised one for this time, is preparing everything to rescue the nations of the earth, enslaved by materialism, from the rule of Pharaoh, as in that time when Moses did, in Egypt with the tribes of Israel. Tell your brethren that Elijah has already manifested himself through a human spokesman, that his presence has been in spirit, and that he shall continue to illuminate the way to all the people who shall come in the future. Your shepherd has as his mission to restore all the creatures to their true path, whether it be spiritual, moral, or material order, for which I tell you how fortunate shall be the nations that receive the call of the Lord through Elijah. Thus they shall be united by the law of justice and love, which shall bring them peace as the fruit of their understanding and brotherhood. Thus united they shall be taken to the field of battle, where they shall struggle against evil, materialism, and falsehood. In that struggle, the men of this time will see new miracles, and they shall understand the spiritual sense of life, that which speaks to them of immortality and peace. They will cease killing one another, and realizing that what you should be destroying is your ignorance, your selfishness, and your insane passions, which have given origin to your obstacles and miseries, both material and spiritual. Elijah is the ray of God, whose light comes to dissipate the darkness and liberate you from the slavery of this time, which is sin, and who will guide your spirit through the desert until you arrive at the promised land in the bosom of God.